I think what's really interesting here is while these are underrepresented areas in the data sets that we have today, actually when you stitch them together, one of my first questions is, if you take a segment like youth, which is very hard to measure in most systems that we have globally, maybe not necessarily in the US, but certainly outside the US, and they're spending a lot of time in these walled gardens where we can't access the information for what they're doing, and certainly in my region, where YouTube consumption is the highest in the world behind the US, there is actually a majority of audio consumption happening in this space. So my question actually to you, Radha, is what is your point of view on when you stitch these things together? What does that mean for a company like you?
So the one question, I don't know if this is on or not, that we ask all of our advertising clients, right, is what is your sound strategy? And what does that mean? Why do I ask what is your sound strategy? For some very specific reasons, right? So try watching a horror movie or a horror movie trailer on television, right? Turn off the sound and see if you're scared at all. You know, it'll look cartoonish to you. Leave the sound on and walk to another room, and you will be frightened out of your mind. Because it's the sound, and even Turner and others have put out research on this topic, it's the sound that actually that makes video work, that makes so much of the world go around, right? The average attention span, I can see it even a little bit in this room, and it certainly is true of me. The average attention span of a human being today is 8 seconds. The average attention span of a goldfish is 9 seconds, right? So most of us are more inattentive and inattentive to media and inattentive to advertising than a goldfish is. And, but sound cuts through all of this clutter because you have so many visual distractions and so many forms of display and everything else coming at you. So you actually have something really, really powerful that you can anchor your advertising. And then finally, to bring this back to wall gardens, right, which is what we were all talking about to begin with, for many of the youth, YouTube, high consumption, is actually an audio playlist, right? The visual is minimized, and you've seen this data, and I've seen this data, but they're essentially using it as a jukebox, right? So, and certainly, you know, kids and teens, like, you know, they got to listen to their music, right? So I think the larger point that we're making is less about wall gardens or radio or kids, but the ways in which we think about the world. And often some of the visual-centric ways in which we've been thinking about the world are actually quite outdated, and you have to upend the paradigm, and then you'll start to really turbocharge your advertising.
I can't agree more. So in the UK, I was actually given a government grant to invest in understanding the role of audio in digital. And if anyone knows the world over, John Lewis, which is one of the greatest department stores in the UK, they have actively advocated on the use of audio in advertising, specifically in digital, and they put over 10% of their entire media budget behind the rights to the music that they use for their advertising commercials. And they've also done the attribution to show the contribution of the use of sound in their advertising towards their bottom line and their ROI, and they are very cash flow positive. Every single member of their staff are getting bonuses off the fact that they really have a tight strategy of the use of audiovisual and digital.
Yeah, and it plays a lot also into how we think of tying in metrics across platforms. So I think George Ivey will talk later from the MRC in the US about across platform sort of common metrics and standards, and having the sound, you know, it's not only you know, 2 seconds for a viewable impression in video, 50% of the pixels rendered, but there's a lot of discussion about do you need to have an audible aspect into that standard as well?
Yeah, we're looking at the audio aspect of video, and we were joking yesterday. And I made a joke about age earlier. I just, at my ripe age of 29, I can't see a single pixel anymore. And when you look at standardization, whether it's going to be the IAB or the vendors, you know, we're starting to say, what's a metric that matters? It may be a view. So what's a view? One pixel rendered for 2 to 3 seconds? You know, that's horrific. So how we measure this, video and audio, and this is why this whole panel is so interesting. By the way, is this the most diverse panel here? At ICOM?
The first time.
All right, okay, I'm the only male here, let's note that. But once you get into these metrics, people start throwing rocks saying, this viewability stuff is stupid. So don't feel, when you're working with your clients or yourselves, that you have to follow the metrics that exist there. One of the things that we found constantly is that the brands and the agencies that we work with, we define the metrics of what's going to actually drive business. And views, 1 pixel, 2-second view, not going to work.
So can I ask if there's anyone who has any questions in the audience to raise their hand, if they would like to ask anyone here on the panel? Not at the moment. Maybe we're underrepresented and you haven't had enough time to think about it. So then can I ask, these are 3 key areas. Can I ask each of you to comment before we run out of time and need to move on to the next session? What would you like to see happen in the next few years to improve media measurement for the areas that you focused on, whether it be environments where, they're walled gardens and hard to get into, or kids, or the use of audio?
So I can start, right? And then maybe we can go around this way, which is that for us, right? Sound is critical to being human. Sound is critical to media consumption, 3 hours a day, at least in America, probably not that different everywhere else. And if you're not thinking about sound in your measurement, whether you're a measurement provider or an advertiser, you're missing a huge chunk of engagement. And a lot of innovation has happened in this space because, we're scrappy and we can afford to take risks. And so it's about embracing that innovation, thinking about your strategy, and understanding how audio anchors so much of what is going on in the world.
Yeah, and I think where we'd like to be in a year or two going forward with this whole Kids and Teens initiative is we'd like to have kind of cracked the code on measurement and be moving on to how to scale it and fit it in with kind of all the other cross-platform measurements for other age groups. So that's where we're hoping to go.
So walled gardens, when you have walls, you're protecting something. You're protecting content. And the walled garden providers are starting to protect data. So what I hope to see over the following years is the walls to become a little bit lower. Let's get a lot more primary and first-party data in there. It's all about data because the advertisers, the brands, they need this. So we're hoping to see the evolution of the walls come down just a little bit.
And is there any questions in the audience? No? Okay, so what's going to happen next then is we're going to go to a coffee break, and in the other rooms there will be some round tables, and at each table there will be a moderator, and the moderator will have a particular theme that we've covered over the course of this 2-day conference. You can sit, discuss topics, and excuse me, the moderator's role will be to really try and summarize all of the key points that are coming up on the topics that we've been covering, and to boil them down into 3 major key points that will be the output of these particular topics. So if you can make your way over and follow these lovely ladies, they'll direct you. It's completely elective on where you choose to sit. Thank you. And to the panelists, thank you very much.